LSD trip goes south. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's someone, and welcome to today's report. Today's report was sent in by Nick. When this happened was July 3rd, 2019. The drugs used: LSD, THC, and DPH. The dose: 600 micrograms of LSD, a high dose of wax oil, and 75 milligrams of DPH. Gender: male. Age: he said 100% over 18, no cap. Height: 5'9". Prior experience: he said there was too much to consider, which probably means he's had a fair amount of experience. And where this happened: at his house. So this does sound like a pretty crazy combination, and what ends up happening, I would say, is mainly due to the LSD, but I'm sure the DPH did influence some things later on to the trip. And he seems, based off the trip, I would say he might be susceptible to DPH in general, but then again, the LSD may have enhanced the effects of the DPH greatly. So it's a very interesting report, very entertaining report. A lot happens in it, and I'm sure you guys are going to like it. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. Substances taken. Start: LSD 600 micrograms. 1 hour 30 minutes in, wax oil, high dose. 5 to 6 hours in, DPH 75 milligrams. One day, one of my friends that I have not seen for a long time, due to me being out of the country, will be returning today. He informs me of the time we meet and where, and eventually I arrive. When I met him, I asked about the dope, and he takes me up into his apartment and into his bedroom. Once we get there, he shows me the LSD he got, and me wanting to trip the fuck out, I asked for 2 300 microgram water tabs, 600 micrograms in total, for $10. I got an ultimate best friend discount. My brother was also interested in tripping, so I asked my buddy for 1 250 microgram tab for my brother, and I'll give him the money from my brother another day. He's okay with it and hands me the tab. My 2 tabs had some cartoon display of a sunset, while my brother's 250 tab had a Doctor Who cartoon on it. And I pay him the money, and we just hang out for the rest of the day. I get home at around 8:30 p.m. and show my brother what I have. He had a wax cartridge and a vaporizer with him, so we decided we're going to smoke it during the trip to get stupidly high. We both wanted to get fucked. He takes his tab at 9 p.m. and I dose 2 of mine a quarter after 9. The 2 tabs had no bitter taste, so I was sure this was LSD. I started noticing it kick in after 30 minutes of dosing. It was as if I was able to recognize patterns more easily. I began to notice faces on the wooden floor in the video game I was playing in. I decided to get up because now the body high was completely noticeable. It is like the feeling of coldness you get when someone passes by you, but all over your body and down your spine. I get up from my PC and go to my hallway, and then the trip hit me like a truck. I began to stare at a painting of Jesus, and it's as if the entire painting was animated at an infinite amount of FPS and an infinite amount of quality. The colors everywhere were shifting to different tints, and I was able to communicate with them telepathically. I go into my bathroom to see everything warping and breathing in a weird wavy motion and completely smooth. I stare at myself in the mirror and see myself be covered in beautiful rotating patterns. I cannot really describe in words how it looks. I go back to the hallway and see everything covered in Mayan and Aztec imagery, all transforming into new symbols. I return back to my room, laughing my ass off for no apparent reason, and turn to my brother's bed to see a queen of a kingdom on it. I communicate with it and cuddled with it in a euphoric state. I eventually listened to music, and I was able to see the music. I saw myself at a hospital in my peripheral vision in a sad part of the song. The melody seemed to be greatly intensified with notes you cannot hear sober. I smoked the wax with my brother 90 minutes into the trip. When it kicked in, I was gone. I believed my room was a spaceship and that nothing outside of it existed. I felt like I was not moving my limbs despite moving them. It's as if I was floating around my room. I end up talking a lot about deep questions and the answer to reality. I turn on the lights and my entire vision is composed of a kaleidoscope with each triangle looking like stained glass art. Can't really describe it. I lay in my bed and close my eyes for God knows how long and visit some new worlds and such. My closed-eye visuals were just fully 3D and I could interact with them using all 5 senses. After I somewhat come back to reality, but still gone, I look at my brother and I notice people on Instagram, they look way more attractive and they were moving or dancing in the photos. I was in a world known as the Gone. I could not remember who I was or where I was. Time did not exist and I have broken the space-time continuum. My brother is also tripping, but is way more functional than I am. After 5 hours, I feel somewhat sober, but still hallucinating. I go downstairs to watch YouTube on the bed in the living room. Everything seemed to be intensified, and I was having complete synesthesia. I stare at the album art and see it just becoming pixelated and all beautiful and transforming. I felt like a rock star. I was able to see my thoughts project onto the TV. I don't know how to explain how that feels like. Then, I do the biggest mistake and take 3 pills of Benadryl for some reason. I do not know why. I browse Instagram, then, when the Benadryl kicked in, every photo became of low quality and all greens and blues are filtered out, but the people in the photos appeared to be more animated and the animations became more rigid and evil at the same time. I also had the thought that the only way to keep the time moving forward was to masturbate, and ceasing doing so would freeze time. I do my thing, and now my body feels really weird, and it felt like I was not stroking my own dick. Some time passes, and I start to see shadows with glowing red eyes come up to me, and the more I jerked off, the more angry they became. I stop, and they move the bed closer to the TV, put a table to my right, and served me wine. I was allowed to continue to wank. I have become the owner of a fancy restaurant and saw people around me sitting in the chairs chatting nonsense. I accept that I've entered a totally new world of weirdness and I want to see what happens. I began to hear screaming around me and tried to pinpoint the source. I looked to the floor of the living room to see a bunch of blue lines surrounding the furniture around me go down around them as if a video game was loading up. I then see a bunch of tiny soldiers place tents and shooting lasers at each other. Some of them had legitimate guns, but because Benadryl likes to be a little piece of shit, it made the bullets spiders. I was being shot at by them and didn't react much to it. I turn off the TV to go upstairs and see my entire downstairs part of the house just covered with dark spider nets that blocked any light from the other side. I was also covered with them, and they looked highly realistic. Sounds of bugs flying or like a swarm of bees was everywhere and all I heard. I, for some reason, think I have 5 seconds to go run through these cobwebs and spiders to turn on the light or I'm going to die. I rush to the light switch and manage to turn it on. I go upstairs and blood began to rail from the ceiling and giant centipedes are crawling all over the walls. I go to my room to see my brother playing on my PC. My brother had a green aura around him and I went to him and I could see the entire environment shift to a happy one. I look into the mirror to see that my pupils have been dilated to such an extent. My blue eyes appear to be almost black. I have also noticed that I am unable to contract my muscles and talked extremely quiet and slow along with staring off into space frequently. I appear to behave and look like an insane psych ward patient. I have a chat with my brother and I admit to what I have done and for some reason I start to slowly get more anxious. I don't even remember if I was able to remind myself I was on a drug. The hallucinations look too real and scary. I eventually end up on my own bed with a green aura and everything around us had a red aura. I heard bugs flying and spiders forming in numbers just being copy and pasted continuously. I then started to see the blood drooping from the ceiling again and I could physically feel the blood touch me. I automatically began to feel like I am extremely weak and old. I thought I was a 90-year-old soldier on the battlefield, looking at tanks and the enemies with knives launching at me, all in my bedroom. I looked at my brother's feet, and they start to rot like a crocodile addict. I tell him that if we even separate, I was going to surely be killed. We separated, which caused me to exit the green zone and enter the red zone. Then there were tiny little demons on everything around me and got strings attached to me, ripping my body into shreds, along with the lasers from the micro soldiers from before. I was able to physically feel being ripped apart with genuine sensations of pain. I jump back into the green aura around my brother and everything goes calm again. Panic then just began to creep up on me, and then it was the end. I saw my brother put a shirt on, and the part of the body the shirt was covering wasn't there. I just saw right through the translucent shirt and was able to see the PC his body was supposed to be blocking. I saw my entire field of vision begin to deteriorate like that of a Windows Movie Maker fade effect. I was sure going to be killed over and over again for an infinite amount of time, never being able to escape hell. My brother was then being possessed by Satan. He started to grow a tail, but translucent, becoming more opaque slowly, horns on his head, pentagram tattoos, and very long vampire teeth. This was it. God was punishing me for wasting my life with drugs, and that everyone in my family will murder me. It is like God set up this moment exactly, all evidence to discard because a paranoia was being blocked by the red zone, and any attempt would result in death. I felt spiders crawling inside my stomach, esophagus, and mouth. I was apparently going to have to vomit them, but resisted the urge to, and kept trying to get spiders off my clothing and stuff. I was in this thought loop, and the intensity of the panic kept oscillating for like 3 hours, but I could not even understand what time was at the time. I eventually managed to get less psychotic and fall asleep for 16 hours. Never fuck with deliriants. They are the most terrifying drugs in existence and are extremely bad for your health. I hope no one goes through what I went through.